The grand hall of the alien palace was silent, except for the heavy sound of armored boots pressing against the polished floor. Dozens of alien guards stood in a perfect circle, their long rifles glowing with strange blue energy. All of them were aimed at one man, a human, standing alone in the center. His clothes were torn, his face marked with dust and blood, but his eyes carried defiance. Above them all, on a towering throne carved from dark crystal, sat the alien queen. She was tall, with shimmering silver skin that reflected the lights of the hall. Her crown glowed faintly with pulsating power, and her cold gaze never left the human. She raised her hand slowly, and the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. "Kill him." Her voice echoed through the chamber. It was sharp, final, and without mercy. The guards moved in unison, tightening the circle. The human felt the heat of the energy weapons humming against him. Any second, and his body would be nothing more than ash on the marble floor. But he did not bow. He did not beg. He stood tall, staring at the queen as if her words had no power over him. His silence was louder than any scream. Inside his mind, he replayed the events that had brought him here. He had not come to this palace as an enemy. He had not come to start a war. He had come because fate had dragged him into a moment he could never escape. The alien guards shifted uneasily. Their fingers twitched on their weapons. They had killed countless enemies before, but this human was different. He did not tremble. He did not plead. He only looked at their queen with eyes that seemed to burn with something beyond fear. The queen leaned forward on her throne, her lips curved slightly, not into a smile, but into something colder. "You humans think you are brave," she said, "but bravery will not save you here." Her words rolled across the chamber like thunder, and for the first time, a flicker of doubt appeared in the human's chest, but he forced it down. He reminded himself that if he died, he would die standing, not crawling. The silence stretched, the weapons hummed. A single breath could spark his end. The hall itself was massive, built for the purpose of awe and fear. Towering pillars reached the ceiling, and strange alien symbols glowed faintly along the walls. It was a room meant to remind everyone that the queen's word was law. Here, mercy had no place. Only power decided life and death. The human shifted his weight slightly. His body ached from wounds he had suffered in the days before. His ribs felt cracked, his skin burned, and yet he held himself like a soldier ready for the final march. He thought of Earth, of faces he would never see again. He thought of the mission that had ended the moment he was captured. The guards raised their weapons higher, waiting for the signal. The queen's hand was still raised. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. She was about to end him, and yet she studied him with curiosity. There was something in his silence, something that unsettled even her. The human's lips parted. His voice was calm, though quiet. "If you want me dead," he said, "then do it yourself." Gasps moved through the guards. None had ever spoken to the queen in such a way. It was madness. It was suicide. Yet it was also courage. The queen's hand froze. For a moment, her expression shifted. It was not anger, not yet, but something sharper, something that looked like recognition. But she quickly masked it, narrowing her eyes. "You do not command me, human," she said, her tone colder than before. "You are nothing." Still, she did not lower her hand. The order hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. The human took another slow breath. His heart pounded, but his face remained calm. He knew that this moment was not just about him. It was about showing them that humanity would not kneel. Even here, in the heart of an alien empire, he would not break. The silence grew heavier. The guards' weapons hummed louder. Sweat trickled down the human's brow, but his eyes never left the queen's. The queen's lips parted slightly. Her voice rose again. "End him now." Every guard adjusted their aim. The human closed his eyes for a brief second, preparing for the inevitable burn of energy tearing through his body. Yet when he opened them again, he did not see death. He saw something else, something strange. The queen's gaze had moved, no longer fixed on him. Her eyes had shifted just past his shoulder. Her hand that was raised began to tremble slightly. Her breath caught in her throat. Her silver eyes widened. The guards hesitated, confused. None of them understood why the queen had stopped speaking. None of them understood why her expression had turned from rage to shock. The human felt the change in the air. He turned his head slowly. and what he saw made his heart pound harder than ever before. Two small figures stood behind him, silent, their eyes wide, their faces innocent, the daughters of the queen. And in that moment, the entire hall froze. The hall remained silent. The guards did not move. Their glowing weapons were still aimed, but their fingers had frozen. The alien queen's eyes were wide, locked on the two young girls who stood behind the human, her daughters, her own blood, hidden until this very moment. The human turned his head slightly. He recognized them instantly. He had seen those faces before, not here in the palace, but days ago, on a battlefield filled with smoke and screams. He had saved them, without even knowing who they truly were. And now, here they were, standing like a shield between him and death. The guards shifted uncomfortably. No one dared to speak. The queen's daughters looked fragile, their skin glowing faintly like silver light, their large alien eyes filled with innocence and fear. They looked at the human, not with terror, but with trust. They knew him. They remembered him. The queen's lips trembled. For the first time, her authority seemed uncertain. She had ordered the death of a man who had risked everything to protect her children. If she killed him now, she would be betraying their savior. Her voice caught in her throat, but her pride kept her from showing weakness. The human stood still. He did not move closer. He did not speak yet. He knew the entire palace was watching. He could feel the tension pressing down on him like a storm. One wrong word, and the guards would fire. The queen's hand lowered slowly, not fully, but enough for the guards to hesitate further. Her voice was sharp, but less steady. "Why are you here, human? Why did you come to my throne room?" Her words echoed. The human met her gaze. His voice was steady. "I didn't come here to die," he said. "I came because fate left me no choice." The hall buzzed with whispers. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. None of them understood. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, and beneath notice. Yet this one stood tall before their queen, speaking with a courage none of them could deny. The queen's daughters stepped forward, their small hands clutched at the human's arm, as if afraid he would be taken away again. Their eyes looked at their mother, silently begging her not to harm him. The human felt their trembling, and for the first time in many days, he realized he was not standing alone. A memory struck him. He remembered the night he had found them, lost and crying in the ruins of a fallen outpost. He had hidden them under broken walls as enemy soldiers searched for survivors. He had bled to protect them, carried them across burning fields, whispered words of comfort even when his own strength was fading. And now, those same children had walked into the throne room, revealing the truth that no one expected. The queen's heirs owed their lives to the very human she had condemned. The queen leaned back into her throne, her silver eyes narrowed. The hall felt colder. "You saved them," she whispered. Her voice was not soft, but it carried something deeper, a struggle between pride and gratitude. The human nodded. His answer was simple, yes. A ripple of shock moved through the guards. Some lowered their weapons without meaning to. Others stared in disbelief. A human saving the royal bloodline was unthinkable. The queen clenched her fist. She wanted to deny it, to erase the truth. Yet the evidence stood in front of her, her daughters, alive only because of him. Their presence was louder than any argument. For the first time, the queen did not know what to order. She did not know if she should call him enemy or protector, murderer or savior. She felt the eyes of her entire court on her, waiting for her command. The human did not beg for mercy. He simply stood. His silence was powerful. He knew this moment was not about him alone. It was about something far larger, about humanity proving its worth in the eyes of an empire. The queen finally spoke. Her voice was colder again, as if trying to reclaim control. "You walk into my hall as a stranger, yet my daughters defend you. Tell me why. Tell me what you are to them." The human took a breath. His voice was calm. "I am no one to them," he said. "But when I saw children in danger, I chose to protect them. That is what humans do." The words rang through the chamber, simple but undeniable. Even the alien guards, trained to see humans as lesser beings, felt the weight of them. For a moment, the empire itself seemed shaken. The queen's face was unreadable. Her fingers tapped against her throne. Her daughters still clung to the human, their eyes pleading with her. And so, in the heart of the alien palace, A single human stood between death and destiny. The execution had been ordered, but fate had chosen a different path, a path that neither the queen nor the human fully understood yet. The hall remained frozen, waiting for what would happen next. The queen's throne room stood in complete silence. The guards, who only moments ago were ready to fire, now looked uncertain, their weapons still pointed, but their hands trembled. No one knew whether to obey the last command or wait for a new one. The queen's silver eyes remained fixed on the human, yet they shifted often to her daughters clinging to his side. Her heart was torn. For years she had ruled with iron will, showing no weakness, no hesitation. But here, in front of the court, hesitation had taken root. The human did not move. He could feel the heat of the weapon still aimed at him. He could feel the tension in the room pressing down like a heavy weight. Yet he stood calm, his back straight, his gaze steady on the queen. He knew one sudden motion would bring death, but he also knew silence was its own weapon. The queen finally raised her hand again. Every guard tightened their grip, waiting for the order. The human breathed slowly, ready for the burn of energy fire. But the command did not come. Instead, her voice was softer, though filled with steel. Why did you save them, human? Why risk your life for what is not yours? The words struck through the air. Her question was more than curiosity. It was disbelief. Her empire had taught her that humans only fought for themselves. Yet here stood one who had bled for her heirs. The human's reply was simple. Because they were children. Whispers erupted through the guards. His words were too simple, too human, and yet they carried a weight that no alien logic could dismiss. The queen's daughters pressed closer to him. Their small voices broke the silence. "Mother, he saved us," one of them whispered. "He kept us safe when no one else could." The hall stirred. Never before had the royal daughters spoken in defense of a stranger. Their voices were pure, and their truth undeniable. The queen's jaw tightened. She wanted to dismiss their words, to say they had been deceived, but the fear in their voices was real, and so was their trust in the human. She looked at him, studying every scar, every mark of struggle on his body. He had fought, not for himself, but for them. For the first time in her reign, doubt clouded her judgment. If she ordered his death now, she would crush the gratitude in her daughters' hearts. Yet if she spared him, she would appear weak before her guards. Her throne itself trembled under the weight of that choice. The human saw her struggle. He did not speak further. He knew words alone could not sway her. Instead, he stood in silence, letting the truth shine through the girls who held his arm tightly. The guards looked to one another, confusion growing. Some lowered their weapons slightly, waiting for a clear signal. Others held firm, their loyalty pulling them in two directions: obedience to their queen or respect for the savior of the princesses. At last, the queen's voice broke the silence. "Step forward," she commanded. Her words were aimed at the human. The human hesitated. Every instinct told him it could be a trap, yet the daughters tugged at him, urging him forward. Their eyes begged him not to fear, and so he took a single step, then another, until he stood directly before the queen's throne. The guards braced, but the queen did not give the kill order. She looked down at him, her silver gaze piercing. "You stand in my hall, accused of being a threat to my empire," she said. "Yet my blood calls you protector. Why?" The human's reply was calm. "Because I chose to act when others stood still. That is what it means to be human." His words rang through the chamber, sharp and unshaken. For a moment, even the queen's breath caught. The daughters nodded quickly. "He speaks the truth, mother," they cried. Their voices rose higher, echoing against the walls. "Without him, we would not be alive." The queen's hand trembled. Her guards saw it, and for the first time, they wondered if their ruler, who had never faltered before, was uncertain. That hesitation spread like fire. The queen rose from her throne, towering above all. Her shadow stretched long across the marble floor. She walked down slowly, her every step echoing like thunder. The human did not move. He held his ground, even as she stopped inches from him. Her eyes blazed with power. Her voice was cold. "Do you not fear me, human?" The human's reply was steady. "Fear does not change the truth." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The queen stared at him, her daughters clinging tighter. the guards frozen in awe of the defiance standing before their ruler. And then, the impossible happened. The queen did not strike him. She did not order his death. Instead, she turned her head slightly, as though listening to something far beyond the throne room, as though fate itself had whispered in her ear. Her lips parted. Her voice came softer than before. "Perhaps you are not what I believed." The hall gasped. The human stood in silence. The daughters pressed against him, and the guards waited, their weapons trembling lower. The moment of hesitation had become something greater, a crack in the queen's unshakable rule, a spark that could change the future of two worlds. The throne room was still, yet inside every heart there was a storm. The queen stood frozen, her daughters clung to the human, and the guards shifted in confusion. They had expected a swift execution, not this hesitation, not this strange bond forming in front of their eyes. The human lowered his head slightly, not in surrender, but in memory, for the queen's question echoed through his mind. Why did you save them? And though his answer had been simple, the truth behind it was far greater. It had begun only days ago, on a battlefield where smoke blotted out the skies. The alien empire had unleashed its fury on rebels who resisted their rule. Villages burned, ships exploded in the air, and the ground was littered with fire and ruin. The human had been there, not as a soldier of the queen, but as a lost fighter stranded far from his own. He remembered the cries, thin and desperate, cutting through the chaos. Following the sound, he had stumbled through shattered walls and burning debris. There, hidden beneath a broken arch, were two young girls, their small alien faces streaked with tears, their clothes torn, their eyes wide with terror as enemy soldiers marched closer. He could have turned away. He was already wounded, his arm bleeding, his lungs heavy with smoke. Survival screamed at him to keep moving, to escape before he was captured. But his heart, his human heart, refused. He dropped his weapon beside them, crouched low, and whispered in a steady voice, "Stay quiet. I'll keep you safe." The girls clutched at him instantly. As if sensing something true in his words, he dragged rubble over their hiding place, shielding them from sight. Then he stood outside like a lone wall, facing the enemy soldiers as they came searching. Blaster fire lit up the ruins. He fought with everything he had, fists when his rifle ran dry, broken steel when his strength failed. Pain tore through him with every strike. But he did not move from his place. He would not let them reach the girls. By the time the soldiers retreated, leaving smoke and silence behind, he was on his knees, his body broken, his vision blurred. But the girls crawled out, their little hands touching his face, whispering in their language words he did not understand. Yet he knew. They were thanking him. He carried them through the night, across ruined fields where the air smelled of ash. When they grew too tired to walk, he lifted them onto his shoulders. When they cried, he told them stories of Earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of skies filled with birds instead of warships. He gave them hope, even as his own strength faded. Now, in the queen's hall, those same daughters stood beside him, and the memory burned bright in his chest. The queen's gaze softened just for a heartbeat. Though she quickly masked it again, her daughter's words had already exposed the truth, but the image that now grew in her mind unsettled her. Her children, the blood of her empire, alive only because a human, an enemy, had stood against death itself. The guards whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of it. He fought for them. One muttered, "He should be dead already," said another. Their voices carried doubt, and doubt was dangerous inside the throne room. The queen raised her hand sharply. Silence returned at once. She stepped closer, her long cloak dragging across the polished floor. Her silver eyes burned into the humans. "You risked your life for mine," she said slowly. "But do not mistake that for loyalty. You are still a stranger in my empire." The human did not argue. His reply was calm. "I didn't do it for loyalty. I did it because they were innocent." The daughters gripped his arm tighter. Their voices, soft but brave, rose again. "Mother, he protected us when no one else would," one said. "He carried us through fire," said the other. The queen's expression darkened, not in anger at them, but in conflict within herself. She turned away sharply, pacing back toward her throne. Her cloak swept the ground, her every step heavy. She was torn between two truths. that her rule demanded strength without mercy, and that her heart, though she would never admit it, carried gratitude. The human stood silently, watching her. He could feel the bond between him and the daughters like an invisible thread, a bond forged not by blood, but by fire. He did not know what it meant for the future, but he knew it was unbreakable. The guards lowered their weapons slightly, uncertain now. No one knew what the queen would decide. The air was thick with tension, and every second felt stretched into eternity. At last, the queen sat back upon her throne. Her voice was cold again. Yet a shadow of doubt lingered. "You have placed me in a position no enemy ever has, human," she said. "If I kill you, I betray my daughters. If I spare you, I betray my crown." The hall trembled with her words. The human's heart pounded. The daughters clung tighter. Their mother's dilemma was plain for all to see. The unseen bond, born on a battlefield, now threatened to change the fate of an empire, and though no one yet knew it, this was only the beginning. The throne room was heavy with silence. The guards stood still, their weapons lowered halfway, uncertain if the human was an enemy or something more. The daughters clung to his arm, refusing to release him, and the queen sat upon her throne, her silver eyes clouded with thoughts no one could read. She had ruled her empire for decades without question. Her word was law. Her enemies feared her. Her people obeyed her. She had never faltered, never shown hesitation. But now, before her entire court, she was divided. The human stood calmly, his body battered, his clothes torn, but his spirit unbroken. He did not speak further. He knew the queen was fighting within herself. Her pride battled against her heart, and her decision would shape more than just his fate. The queen's gaze lingered on her daughters. Their wide eyes shone with fear, but also with something else, defiance. They stood not with her, but with him. The thought stung deeper than any wound, for in that moment, she realized her children trusted a stranger more than their own guards. She rose slowly from her throne. Her cloak spread like a shadow across the marble floor. The guards straightened, waiting. The daughters clutched the human tighter. The queen stepped down the dais, her voice sharp but trembling beneath the surface. "You saved them," she said. Her tone was not a question but an accusation, as if the truth itself betrayed her. The human's reply was steady. "Yes." Her silver eyes narrowed. "And in saving them, you place me in chains," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "If I kill you, I betray them. If I spare you, I betray my crown." The guards lowered their heads. They understood the weight of her words. The empire was built on strength. Mercy was weakness. And yet, here was a man who had done what none of them had. He had protected the royal bloodline. The daughters spoke again, their voices small but cutting through the silence. "Mother, he is not our enemy." One whispered. "He is the reason we live," the other added. The queen closed her eyes for a brief moment. Behind her steel mask was the heart of a mother. The image of her daughters lying dead on a battlefield had haunted her for days. Now, to know they survived because of this human, it was gratitude she could not admit. Not here, not now. The human finally broke his silence, his voice calm. "I did not ask for your crown. I did not ask for your trust. I only did what was right." The queen's hand twitched as though she might strike him, but she did not. His words pierced deeper than any weapon. They reminded her of something she had forgotten. Innocence, kindness, a choice made without power or politics. The guards shifted uneasily. They had never seen their queen hesitate this long. Never seen her caught between law and heart. Rumors would spread. Whispers would carry into the empire that their queen was shaken by a single human. Her pride burned. She could not let weakness show. She straightened her shoulders, her voice colder. "Do you understand what you have done, human?" she asked. "You have made me appear uncertain before my own throne. My enemies will see this as weakness. They will strike, and all because you chose to interfere." The human's answer came firm. "If saving children is weakness, then maybe your enemies understand strength better than you." Gasps echoed across the hall. The guards froze. The queen's eyes widened. For the first time, someone had dared to challenge her in her own chamber. Her daughters clung tighter, their voices pleading, "Mother, please." The queen's lips trembled. Her hands clenched into fists. Inside her was a storm. Her crown demanded blood. Her heart demanded mercy. To kill him would end the question. To spare him would begin 1,000 more. She paced slowly, every step sharp, her cloak dragging across the floor like a shadow of her doubt. The human watched her, unmoving. He knew her struggle. He knew she stood on a knife's edge between power and compassion. The guards shifted, their eyes darting from her to him. For the first time, the fear in the hall was not of death, but of the unknown. At last, the queen stopped. She turned, her voice low but carrying across every corner of the chamber. "You live," she said. The words shook the air. "But do not mistake this for mercy. You live because my daughters demand it." The guards lowered their weapons completely. A ripple of shock moved through the court. The human remained still. He had expected death, but instead he had been given something far more dangerous: life under her watch. The daughters exhaled in relief, their small hands gripping his arms tighter. The queen, however, turned her gaze cold again, her voice harsh. "You will not leave this palace. You will remain where I can see you. If you truly save them, then your fate is tied to mine now." The human met her eyes, his reply calm. "So be it." And with those words, the throne room shifted. What had begun as an execution had turned into something else, something greater. The queen's dilemma was not resolved, only postponed. The human's presence had cracked her rule, and everyone in that hall knew. The empire would never be the same again. The throne room still pulsed with tension. The guards had lowered their weapons, yet their eyes remained locked on the human. He stood between them and the queen, bruised and bloodied, but unbroken. His silence carried more weight than their rifles. The queen sat high upon her throne once more. Her silver crown gleamed under the pale light. Her face was calm, but her heart was unsettled. She had spared him, yet every beat of her pulse reminded her that mercy was poison to a ruler. Her people would whisper, her enemies would strike. She could not afford weakness. Her voice echoed across the hall, sharp and commanding. "Do not mistake my decision as compassion. You live because of my daughters. Without them, you would already be ash on this floor." The human lifted his chin. His voice was steady. "I never asked for compassion. I asked only to stand. If death is my fate, then I'll face it without kneeling." The words rolled like thunder. The guards stiffened. The daughters clung to him tighter, their small voices whispering his name. Their trust in him grew stronger with every heartbeat. The queen's eyes narrowed. Her tone was sharp. "You speak boldly for someone who stands in the heart of his enemy's empire. Do you not fear me, human?" His reply came quick. "Fear changes nothing. Fear does not make me weaker, nor does it make you stronger. It only blinds those who let it rule them." The hall stirred. The guards exchanged looks. They had never heard such words, not from their own kind, and never from a human. His defiance was not arrogance. It was truth spoken aloud. The queen's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. She stepped down from her throne, each step deliberate, her cloak trailing behind her like living shadow. She circled him slowly, studying every scar, every drop of blood. "You stand with pride," she said. "But pride cannot save you when surrounded by an empire. You are one against thousands, one spark in a storm, one fragile man against the will of a crown." The human turned his head slightly, his voice calm. "Then let the storm come. Humanity has faced storms before. We survived because we refused to break." Gasps spread across the chamber. His words carried like fire through dry air. The guards, who had been raised to see humans as weak, felt the strength in his tone. The daughters' eyes shone with hope. For the first time in their young lives, they heard someone speak without fear before their mother. The queen's silver eyes locked onto his, her voice lowered, more dangerous. "You think yourself more than you are. You believe courage alone can bend empires." His reply was steady. "I don't believe courage bends empires. I believe it builds them." Her jaw tightened. She could not deny the impact of his words. Her heart told her he was dangerous not because of weapons or power, but because of the idea he carried, the idea that even one human could stand tall in the shadow of her throne. The guards shifted again. Some felt their grip weaken on their rifles. Others dared not meet her gaze. The room no longer felt like a chamber of execution. It felt like a battlefield of words. The daughters raised their voices, their hands clinging tighter to him. "Mother, he is brave," they said. "He is not like the others." The queen turned sharply toward them, her voice harsh. Silence. But the sharpness was only to hide the tremor within. Their innocence cut deeper than the human's defiance. The human took a slow breath. His chest ached. His body screamed from old wounds. But his voice was strong. "You call me fragile. You call me nothing. But your empire will remember this moment, not because I lived or died, but because I stood. Humanity does not bow, not to fear, not to crowns, not to empires. We stand, even when standing costs everything." The words shook the chamber. The guards looked at him with wide eyes. Some felt shame. Others felt admiration. The daughters clung to him as though he were a shield. And the queen, her face unreadable, felt her heart tighten. For years she had believed her empire unshakable, built on fear and obedience. But in the voice of one human, she heard something she had not heard in centuries, defiance that did not fade, even in the face of certain death. She stopped walking, standing before him. Her eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. "You are dangerous," she whispered, not to him alone, but to herself. "Not because of your strength, but because of your spirit." The human met her gaze without flinching. His reply was calm. "Then you understand what makes us human." The chamber froze. The guards waited for her to speak. The daughters looked between their mother and their savior. And for a moment, the queen said nothing. The silence was louder than battle. It was the silence of an empire facing a truth it could not crush. The throne room was no longer the same chamber where death had been ordered. It had become a place of silence, tension, and awakening. The guards who once aimed their weapons now stood divided, their loyalty shaken. The daughters of the queen clung to the human like roots to stone, their trust in him stronger than any command. And the queen, ruler of an empire feared across galaxies, stood face to face with the man she had once condemned. Her eyes burned with conflict. Her crown felt heavier than ever before. Pride demanded she end him. But her heart whispered of a different path. "You should already be dead," she said, her voice sharp, yet softer than before. "My command was clear, yet here you stand, not by my mercy, but by defiance." The human's voice was calm, his eyes steady. "I stand because I chose not to kneel. I stand because your daughters reminded you of truth, not weakness." Her gaze flickered to the girls. Their innocent faces looked up at her with pleading eyes. They were not soldiers, not rulers, not bound by power. They were children, and in their hearts the human was not an enemy, but a savior. The queen turned back to him, her voice lower now. "You think saving 2 lives changes anything? You think standing in this hall makes you more than a man?" His reply was steady. "I don't think it. I know it. Because every empire, no matter how vast, is changed by moments like these. One life saved, one choice made, one voice refusing to be silent." The words echoed across the chamber. Guards shifted uneasily. Their faith in their queen was strong, but they could not deny the weight of his words. The queen's jaw tightened. She had ruled with strength for so long. Yet here was a human breaking her silence with truth she could not dismiss. For the first time in many years, she felt the empire's future slipping beyond her control. She raised her hand slowly. The guards tensed. The daughters gasped and pulled the human's arm tighter. The entire hall waited for the final order. But instead of the command for death, her voice came sharp yet strange. "Enough," she declared. The sound cracked across the chamber like thunder. "This human lives, not as a prisoner, not as a slave, but as a witness." Gasps filled the air. The guards looked at each other in shock. None had expected this. A human living freely within the palace was unthinkable. The human remained calm. Though his chest rose with steady breaths, he had expected death. Yet he had earned something else, something more dangerous. The queen stepped closer, her silver eyes locked onto his. "You have become part of this empire's story," she said. "Your name will not be erased. But understand this. Your survival binds you to my throne. If you betray me, you betray my daughters, and if you betray them, no force in the stars will save you." Her words carried both warning and recognition. It was not trust, but it was no longer hatred. The daughters smiled faintly, relief washing over their young faces. For them, the human was no longer a stranger. He was protector, ally, perhaps even family. The guards lowered their weapons fully, though unease remained. They knew the empire had changed in that moment. Their queen had bent, if only slightly, to a human, and such a crack could spread. The human straightened, his voice calm but firm. Then let it be so. I will not betray them, nor will I bow to fear. Humanity stands, and I will stand here, even in the heart of your empire. The queen studied him for a long moment. Her crown gleamed, her eyes unreadable. At last, she gave the smallest nod, not of weakness, but of acknowledgement. The hall remained silent. Every soul inside understood what had just happened. A man who should have died now lived. A queen who never bent had paused, and the fate of two worlds had shifted forever. From death had risen destiny, and the story of a single human standing against an empire was only beginning.